do have one spot where the resin cracked. You can see that crack extending all the way. Perfect. This side of the table is really against the wall, but on the sides, you can see. It's up a third pour. We're not gonna use nearly all of it. We're just gonna try and get it high enough that
Let it pass right along this.
just split right across, and maybe this is because I poured too thick of a layer.
We'll attach enough. We've got other spots that may not. Chamber will suck out all of the air so there's not bubbles.
Today's video is going to look a little bit differently because instead of having drips off the edge and maybe a little bit of sand.
So obviously there's a little bit of fluctuation that's not too much of a problem. It's not,
And we've now got our
with no problem. So we're just gonna keep doing that.
now
This does a pretty good job of holding it in place. One piece, maybe project, and I'm excited to have this set up in my place as sandblasting kit because I don't have one of those. And it's a pretty nifty.
I think it actually even goes down into the first pour layer a little bit. So I'm gonna do one layer.
That fits in that thing there. It feeds through here. The blue hose has the compressed.
Pretty much all prepped and ready. But what I need to do now is put a couple more layers of resin over.
Overall, I am quite the frame. Then we should have our box. Incredible wood grain that's visible through out. I love that just in through. If they're generally, I'll just trim off kind of along this part. In sand or
Our metal pieces are cut, welded, shaped, and painted.
beautiful. That will make it so that is already bringing out some brilliant figuring, and that's like 80 grit.
Cut a piece that can sit right here as sort of just an extra little island. So it stops soaking it in. After that layer is cured, I'll do any cleanup work way down through that second pour layer.
Also, just to make sure
We've got some extra pieces of the
look at that. That is so much cleaner than it was.
layer. Maybe the first layer was still warm.
This all filled in angle.
Making a small end table out of a piece of burl wood log.
Which has got some lovely burls on it. Burl is basically when the tree gets sort of a tube flat enough that it, I can set a cup down on it and not have it tip over.
Few cracks.
Things I would probably do differently if I were making a second one.
Nooks and crannies, but sand blasting works great. It's not breathing.
But the friction from these little sponge rubber pads on the side.
Bring in it, and then we're going to use a pipette in spots.
That's gonna be exciting.
That's not all though, we've wood.
Now I need to clean these off. They're not very even. I just cut them with a hand.
Not too expensive. We're gonna do a little bit of grinding, a little bit of welding, and a little bit of painting, and we'll
Through the resin. Very happy with the result on that. So this has been a really cool that direction from what's left to try and get this strip right there.
table to be the focus.
We have now finished this table, the frame that goes around parts of the edge of it. And so if there's some wonkiness going on,
Layer of resin on top of
the table it is, I'm very happy with how it looks. There are imperfections. Check that out. The other box is going to show you what YouTube thinks you should be watching next. If you hit this bomb in the middle, you'll be that I'm going to cut out this direction that comes down through this piece of burl. I have drawn, it'll have a little bit of extra space going all. I'm going to try and secure it to the table as best I can. It's
going just the tiniest bit, fill some of these gaps.
A little bit around here. and probably right around there. Just a nice...
The surface of our table is frame. It's fairly minimalistic, but I really want the top of this
on in there. It's not really... Then pour 1/2 into the other one.
For coloring, we'll be using this alcohol ink.
What I want to do is get one, and then a second piece.
We are gonna take this edge.
And so... Now I just have to do that like 3 more times. So more
fill right down into these cracks. Cavity, and that's not necessarily a problem, but I think we could make it a little bit more interesting. The other side did
around those. And you can see we've got a couple of them right here, one of them right here, which is wide, that comes down through both of these pieces of burl right here. And
we'll have our frame.
Paper part, it just starts tearing.
Coming back after the second pour, and it's looking good over most.
Trimming will be done. First thing I need to do is
just gonna mix up some resin with no color.
They need some planing work. I don't actually feel like these pieces need to be 100%. I'm gonna seal up all of the gaps with electrical tape.
There is a little bit more really shallow. So we're
getting my can. Happy with how the surface of this table turned. I've got this big old log here. Now we'll trim down the black board. So now we need to trim it this way and then flatten it off just a little bit. And I think we can use. Have enough yet. This one over here didn't feel quite.
Really the one that has all of the cracks that need fill.
Now, when the resin flows, I think that's a great fit for that piece right there.
One other little thing I want to do right here, I have kind of a large...
The end pieces of the wood. I'm here with my friend Dennis, who is letting me use his... That box up at the top is going to take you directly to our last video. You should go... This is what we're going to be using to make most of...
So we've built the box. You can see that the wood fits nicely into it. On the... Simple pieces of metal that I'm just grabbing at the hardware store. They're not... Resin doesn't stick to it very much, so we can then peel the box pieces off later on.
Sort of combination functional table art piece.
They're just poured over all of that, and that should pretty much seal up the wood
sections, and of course things.
It actually did have some, it looked like, but when I planed the edge off, they went away, so they were...
The problem, I think it'll actually add to the... And let's not get it in our eyes. What? And there's just too many. Just cut this. What I was gonna be a little messy probably. For smaller mixing containers, I'm just gonna build a frame is built, it's attached, it's sitting on here. You are still able to lift it up.
But it comes up to the level of the wood everywhere, maybe overflowing.
Setup. So we've got sand, camera guy Mark film everything. This is actually just something I'm doing on my own.
That didn't fill quite enough. The other side,
little rectangle. I'm quite happy with how it's quite nicely. There's a lot of resin
ending, but then I'll do one more layer
out and just
subscribe to the channel that way you never miss a video. Don't forget to ring that bell.
Back, we're going for pretty much flush of a live edge look of it. Obviously though, I want it around the border, that's all right. We'll then flip bubbles left in the resin, and then it'll get poured into the table.
All of this. We are leaving a gap.
Tearing stuff down, which is good. This saw for that again. Get all over those. So I'm gonna use a little bit of foil or plastic wrap.
Pretty good. This one's just got a few down in there.
Cold environment is good. However, you also don't want to be breathing it in. First step, we need to pour on a flat base, then pour that into our larger bucket, and our larger bucket will go into our vacuum. This stuff is gonna look so good when it's all polished up. Always got more for you, see.
And give work we need to do on our box. We first actually want to give that a coat of wax, hopefully. Next step is to sandblast air. It pulls all of the sand out with it. The white frame over and we'll, great, because these edges are not really an area. Onto the top of it, some lines. That's about where I want that first cut to go. Cell phone, I do have a spare mic, so I'm using that. But it's mostly just gonna be single camera that I need to remove, including some that have some of this nice burl on it. So I think we're gonna try and cut that. And at that point, it should all just be a glossy, clear, perfectly smooth surface. The wood will not float on top of it. We're gonna be doing the resin, the clamps with something so that resin doesn't spill. 1.5 to 2 inch wide as well. We'll cut off the other side and see how it is. And it's like sandpaper without the paper. The table. Percent level and even all the way. Mostly for this, I think I'm just gonna be using a handheld belt sander. Pour off some of both types of resin into our... No bubbles.
Beautiful. We'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then.
Just to not ruin them. I can get sandpaper down into. I even tried a little bit with steel wool and black part of the frame onto the white part. That is fantastic. That none of the resin tries to escape. You know, before I clamp these on, I want to cover them. In today's video, we're tackling a project inspired by the artist Greg Klassen. So I'll cut here and here, then I'll have this half of the log, and then I'll cut that own time. So it's just being filmed on my side, and the interaction between the two layers, stuff like that. In that gap. So I think on this side, it is full. And that worked great. This wood is so soft that I'm able to cut even through like a 2-inch plank of it. Wood dust was too much for it, but let's make. Not going to be sitting, but unfortunately. And see how it looks after that. As before, that's just for indoors because it's not good if you let it get too hot or too cold, so a nice climate control. One angle at a time, and we'll see if we can make it look good. All right. The frame for our table is going to be made of these sailboat blue color. Mix it up for a while.
Hi! Whee! Yay! Oh! One more time, yay! Oh! Let it go! Yay! Oh! Ha! Oh, wow! Oh.